Mercedes turned the latest C63 from a tire-torturing muscle sports sedan into a rolling science project. It's a 4-cylinder plug-in hybrid now. In removing the V8, it completely changed the car's character, turning it into something it's never been. This made everybody hate the C63s E Performance, but after driving one for a few days, I actually grew to like it. Why does everybody hate the C63 AMG, the latest one, the C63s E Performance? Under its longer than the regular W206's hood lives probably the best and most special 4-cylinder engine ever put in a production car. It's basically the same unit you find under the hood of AMG's most potent compact models. Only in that application, the engine is mounted transversely, while here in the C-Class, it is mounted longitudinally, as it should be. This fantastic 4-cylinder with a turbocharger the size of a melon makes 476 horsepower out of 2 liters at 6,750 RPM. That's 239 PS per liter, which is outstanding. It also makes a hefty dollop of torque, 545 Newton meters, or 401 pound-feet. Those are undeniably impressive specs for a 4-cylinder, but they wouldn't have been enough for something with a 63 badge and an S behind it. So Mercedes added an electric motor into the mix, a 204 horsepower electric motor, which together with the monster 4-cylinder from under the hood make a combined 680 PS. That's 671 brake horsepower. And that's a lot. That's more than any of this car's rivals. Sure, in making it a plug-in hybrid, Mercedes has made it heavier than it should be. Thankfully, it didn't equip this car with a monster battery like some plug-in hybrids have these days. It's just a 6 kilowatt-hour unit, gross capacity, that gives you like 14-15 kilometers of electric range, but its purpose isn't to allow you, or its primary purpose isn't to allow you to just drive around sedately in electric mode, even though it can do that. The electric motor and the battery only serve to enhance this car's performance, and enhance they do. It's so fast it hurts. Last week, I was in another brutally quick plug-in hybrid, the BMW M5 Touring, and I didn't like it very much, specifically because of its weight. If you want to check out that video, it's on the channel. The algorithm isn't giving it any love, even though I put a lot of work into that video, and it's my honest and, dare I say, informed opinion on that car. But while that car I thought was compromised by its 2.5-ish ton weight, I don't think the fact that the C63s E Performance is ruined by the fact that it weighs 2.1 tons. Do you notice it weighs 2.1 tons? No. Do you notice it's heavy? Yes. Is it a deal breaker? I don't think it is, to be honest. This car does a lot of things right. So unlike the E53 AMG that I drove a while back, and I didn't really like it because I thought the powertrain was a bit dull and it didn't feel like a nearly 600 horsepower car, even though that car looks fantastic and it's a very fast and good E-Class, and I love the wide body on it. It just didn't light up the way I expected it to, given the fact that it has AMG badges and is an actual AMG model. And I think the problem was the engine, which is just a regular Mercedes straight 6 3-liter that you can find in anything badged 450 in its current lineup. However, this, the M139, is an actual AMG engine, signed by an actual German person who assembled it. So this thing pulls like an absolute animal. in gear from any RPM. What's different in this from the version of the same engine that's in an A45, for instance, is the fact that this also builds boost electrically. So it has a little electric compressor that adds boost to minimize lag. There's still lag, but it's not excessive. And like I always say, a bit of lag in a turbocharged engine makes it a bit fun and challenging to get the most out of. And that's the case here too. It takes a bit of mastery to really wring out this engine. Has 1020 Newton meters of torque. So in any gear, if you put it in manual mode, it just surges forward. Even in ninth, it's still picking up speed quite alarmingly. That's mostly down to the electric motor, of course, helping out the gas engine. Looks like the road is pretty clear, so let's do a race start. This is quite dramatic and quick. I've not experienced acceleration like this in a combustion car. The best way I could describe accelerating in this off the line is when you're a passenger in a very fast car and the driver suddenly stabs it and you don't expect it. And you get that feeling that your organs are being pulled out from behind of your rib cage. And when you enable race start, the seatbelt tightens, the engine starts bouncing off the limiter, or not the limiter at nearly 7,000, but a lower limiter that prevents any kind of slip when you set off. And it also makes an electric E sound, which I'm not a huge fan of. It really isn't necessary. So Mercedes says that this should do 100 kilometers per hour from a standstill in 3.4 seconds. It feels quite a bit quicker than that. I really like the powertrain. Sure, it's a compromise. It's not as theatrical as a V8 or as smooth or as special, but this is still a special engine and a special powertrain. I mean, it's not just another plug-in hybrid from the Mercedes lineup cranked up to 11. It uses a bespoke transaxle rear motor, so the electric motor isn't in the gearbox as it is with most plug-in hybrids these days. So it sits between the two rear wheels, works together with the limited slip differential, and it has its own 2-speed gearbox to make the most of its torque. I do notice sometimes there's a pause in the power delivery, which I attribute to the rear cogs being swapped, and that feels kind of weird. And that frankly is my only real criticism for this powertrain, because it's just so freaking fast. Race start. So in most driving situations, all of the power is sent to the rear wheels, but when you're doing a race start or when the car senses you're losing grip, it will shuffle some of the combustion engine's power to the front wheels. This is actually the first C63 with all-wheel drive. It also has rear wheel steering, and it makes for quite a different driving experience compared to older generations. I drove a W205 C63 non-S a few years ago, and that was so tail happy and a bit more, I guess, chuckable than this, and in a way more fun. It felt lighter because it was lighter, even though it had a great stonking twin turbo V8 under the hood, but it did not feel as capable as this. This feels like much more of a track weapon than that car. You just need the tiniest gap to overtake. When it comes to the sound, some of it is coming through the speakers. Even if you go through this thingy here, and disable the added sound. So now it's with the extra sound off. It sounds almost the same. It's marginally quieter. It's like some of the low notes, some of the bass from the exhaust, which isn't actually the exhaust, seems to go away when you turn off the extra sound. And the thump you feel and hear when upshifting while you're on it also seems to be diminished somewhat. I've frankly just left it on. It doesn't feel fake. It really is the actual noise that this engine makes, but it's enhanced. And it's not like this car isn't loud. I mean, driving around my neighborhood, this car was setting off alarms left and right. And while I was just doing 2,000-3,000 RPM, probably from the upshift actually, and the really loud thud that you hear. But the exhaust itself isn't quiet, to be honest. This thing is biblically fast, and it feels overkill for pretty much any road. The only real use for such performance is going out on track and humiliating other cars, supercars, which this C63 is thoroughly capable of doing. And it makes me wonder what the C43 is like, which has this same fantastic 4-cylinder engine, but that car, without all of the plug-in hybridness, weighs around 300 kilos less. So while this weighs 2.1 ton, that weighs 1.75-ish, I think it is. A huge difference. And I think it's also rear-wheel drive only, which makes it even tastier, because I can't not compare this to the C300 that I drove when this car was launched. And that car felt lively, it felt light, it felt tail happy, it felt more chuckable than this. This feels a bit too focused on delivering maximum grip on track. And it kind of loses some of the AMG lunacy. You can still drift this around, but it's a chore. At least I perceive it as such. It's nowhere near as easy to snake the rear out of a bend as it is in an M3, for instance. That car was clearly designed with a bit of hooliganry in mind, and in a way, this seems sanitized by comparison. This is just as quick, if not quicker, than an M3 around the track. It feels very, very good through the corners. The steering is great. I would even say it's a bit more connected to the front wheels than it is in an M3. I know I said something similar in another AMG video that I did recently when I test drove the CLE 53. I said that I thought the steering felt better in that than it did in an M440i. But now, driving this, the steering feels pointier and more connected than in any BMW that I've driven recently. It really, really likes corners. You feel the slight intervention of the rear wheel steering through lower speed corners, where you just feel the rear end helping you take the turn. The steering wheel itself feels fantastic in the hand. It's like any AMG steering wheel, but in this car, I assume it's optional. It has carbon fiber on top and on the flat bottom, and Alcantara on the grips. And it feels really special, to be honest. What doesn't feel as special are the standard seats. Just like I discovered in the CLE 53, the standard AMG seats these days just don't cut it. These don't look or feel that special, and their lateral support is so-so at best, especially considering this is a 680 horsepower car that people will and should take to the track. So if you're buying one of these cars, which apparently you aren't, but if you are, you should definitely get the optional, I think they're called AMG dynamic seats. Those not only hold you better in place, but they lift the cabin with their much sportier design. And this car really deserves them. It's really ridiculously capable, and you get a lot of lateral G through the corners. If you push it a bit too hard through the corners, you do feel the nose pushing ever so slightly wide. I guess this is a byproduct of its heft and the fact that it has all-wheel drive, but you can counter that by lifting off ever so slightly, and the car adjusts its trajectory really rather nicely. The suspension is also really nice. You get adaptive dampers as standard, and with them in comfort, you can launch the car. You can set up a race start with the car in comfort suspension, and the nose lifts like it's nobody's business. Even in comfort, the pitch and dive is mostly very well controlled. The suspension has 3 stiffness settings. So comfort is the softest one, then you get sport, and then you get sport plus. Sport plus makes it a bit bouncy on anything other than a perfectly smooth road. And I actually found myself driving this car with suspension in the middle setting, which firms it up a bit. It reduces pitch and dive a bit more, and it doesn't make it uncomfortable. I also found myself driving this car in electric only mode, especially through town for short distances. Having the option to go over 10 kilometers without starting up the engine is a novel thing, I think, in a car like this. It's unique. And since the car has it, you might as well use it. And sometimes you really don't want the drone of the AMG 4-cylinder breaking the silence. You really just want to glide around quietly and effortlessly. And with 204 horsepower from the electric motor, it provides plenty of motivation for urban driving and even extra urban driving. It can cruise on electricity up to 125 kilometers per hour, which is lower than some other plug-in hybrids, but it's fine. You also can't fast charge the C63, so it's going to take a few hours to charge. It doesn't have a dedicated charge mode like older plug-in hybrids used to have. That likely has to do with emissions, since when the combustion engine would charge up the battery and run the vehicle, that must have produced a lot of emissions, and yeah, you can no longer do that. This is such a sorted package, and AMG has done a tremendous job hiding the heft. This doesn't feel like a 2.1 ton vehicle. It feels like a 1.8 ton vehicle. Stopping power is also pretty decent. You get 390 millimeter rotors up front and 370s in the back. Unfortunately, you don't get to see the big red AMG branded calipers, because this car has some weird looking aero wheels that I'm not really a fan of. You can get more traditional looking AMG wheels in this, and I would advise it because they help lift this car's exterior. Speaking of its exterior, I think this car, especially in AMG trim, looks tremendous. It gets bulging front fenders, a unique bumper, a unique aggressive grille with vertical slats, and the rear track is also wider than in the standard C-Class, but I don't think the body is actually wider in the back compared to the standard W206. I mean, if it is, it's not very obvious, unlike in the CLE 53 or the E53, both of which have really aggressive rear flanks. And it's one of my favorite design details of those cars, and I think it just makes them look special and sporty and muscular and aggressive and AMG. So Mercedes caught a lot of flack making this car a plug-in hybrid and giving up on the V8. But it's not like it's a half-assed job. It's not like Mercedes took a C300E and just cranked up the power on that. This has a bespoke powertrain setup with a bespoke engine, motor, battery, and electrical system. And it's a plug-in hybrid whose sole purpose is to make this car faster, which it does. Putting a smaller battery in this car was an excellent choice. I think it really works as a package. Would I buy it over an M3? Probably not, because the M3 is just a bit more wayward and fun and enjoyable to slide around a few corners, while in this, it just takes a bit more work on the driver's side, and it's more physically demanding. Not only to slide it, but to drive this car quickly. It drains the life out of you. When I was shooting some of the stuff you're seeing in the background while I'm talking, I was sweating, my arms were tired, especially because around the corners, the seats don't offer enough lateral support, and I was holding onto the steering wheel to keep myself upright in the seat. This is a really physically demanding car to drive quickly, which is fine if you're on a track day and you want to experience that. But when you're just on a swift, casual drive, when you just want to have a bit of fun without breaking a sweat, literally breaking a sweat, because you are gonna sweat in this car. Thankfully, it has ventilated seats, which are a godsend. But I think overall an M3 is more fun than this. But that's not to say this doesn't have an audience, because I think some people might prefer this. And again, it makes me wonder just how good a C43 is. And I really hope I get to drive one, because I'm super duper curious just what it's like. And if I get one, I'm taking it to my special twisty road to try out. Until then, I'll just slip this car into electric mode and just glide back to Mercedes, where I'm gonna return it. Thank you for watching.